Hey everybody, it's Julie, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about writing to the market. Often we hear in publishing about whether something is marketable. What exactly does that mean? It means that if you write this book, you offer it to an agent and or an editor, they're going to look at this and say, yes, I think there is an audience for this, and I think that there is precedent for thinking that this would be commercially successful. Now, the question for us as writers is how do we write something that will be commercially successful or will be considered to be worth a chance by people who are in the publishing industry who are going to have to put money into gambling on us, basically, and hoping that readers will find our ideas and our execution compelling? Well, first off, there is this common misconception that if you want to be marketable, you're going to have to write something that you don't want to write. You're going to have to cave to trends. You're going to have to compromise a lot. And yes, compromise is the C word that you're going to have to get used to in the publishing industry if you want to go mainstream. But it's not the only thing that you're going to have to consider when you're going forward into trying to become a professional. Compromise is something that you're going to have to run through your ideas as to whether this compromises the soul of your work or whether it just compromises some cosmetic aspects of it. If I were to use, say, a surgical metaphor, you can have cosmetic surgery, you can have life saving surgery, you can have surgery that improves your mobility or your life in general, but you can't really have surgery that will switch out your soul because a soul isn't really part of a body that we conceive of as you. And the core, the kernel of your story should not be something that you're going to compromise. If you conceive a kernel of a story that you feel like that is why you wrote this story, that is something that you should never have to compromise. And if other things about the cosmetic aspects of the story or aspects of its presentation can be compromised without changing the soul of the story, you might try it out if you're willing to. You may also feel like the presentation of it, the cosmetic aspects or the physical aspects of it, will compromise too much about it for the soul to be visible the way that you originally intended, and that's completely valid too. You are ultimately in charge of how much you compromise about your work. Um, but what you don't want is to try to be a trend writer, because first of all, it's not going to work. Chances are when there is already a trend that exists in the publishing markets, you're too late already if you're going to start writing a book that's based on that trend. And secondly, publishers are probably already drowning in all these submissions that are trying to ride that wave, and they're going to want what's next, and you're going to want to try to write what's next. But the problem for you is, where is that wave going to come up? How are you going to figure out how to be on top of that wave when it starts to rise? And my only answer to that is just to get out there on your surfboard and do what you want to do, and then hope that the wave is going to come up under you. You can do this by just trying to write something that, with some awareness of what has been marketable in the past, try to create something that you think would be appealing to the same people, but not necessarily in the same way. And you wouldn't want to retell a story that has been done too many times without adding anything unique to it. You wouldn't want to make the same point. You wouldn't want to have the same concept of something that has been, especially something that has been popular in the recent past. And ultimately, it is about writing a story that will contribute something new to the atmosphere, but not something that's so far away from what everybody wants that nobody's going to want it now either. So you also have to consider, what is your purpose in writing this story? Is it to get published, or is it to write a story that you enjoy writing? Personally, I really enjoy writing, and I would write even if nobody was going to read it. I don't necessarily always write things just because I have the perception that it is going to be successful or that it is going to be read. But of course, if you do want to get into the market, sometimes you do have to think about, will this be appealing to mainstream audience? And you're not necessarily going to base all of your decisions about writing on whether it's going to be marketable. But if you do want to try to crack into, cross a line that you have never crossed before, you may have to take some of these considerations into account. So basically, though, if you try to compromise too much about what you're writing, what you're going to end up doing is writing something that is at odds with what made you want to be a writer in the first place. If you feel like you're compromising so much just to get your foot in the door and that you're going to get more opportunities after your foot is in the door, that is true to some extent. You do sometimes get opportunities and get more trust from those in the publishing industry that you've already impressed. But it can also backfire on you. If you have already established that you're this kind of writer, people are going to want you to continue doing that, and they may only continue to offer you chances to publish your work contingent upon that you're going to continue writing the same kind of material. And you don't want to get stuck in a niche that you never wanted to be in the first place, just as a stepping stone to where you really want to be, because there's no guarantee you're going to get there, and it may end up being even harder than going in with a fresh start. So that about wraps up what I have to say about writing to the market. And I hope that this gives you some perspective on, how to approach that in a balanced way. And let me know if you have any questions. Go ahead and put them in the comments if you have anything to say to me. And thank you for watching.